Have you ever felt invisible, not ignored, invisible, like the world around you just kept moving without you? Denzel felt that. He grew up in Mount Vernon, New York, son of a preacher, son of a hairdresser. But faith at home didn't protect him from the pain in the streets. His father was strict, commanding. His mother, tireless. She worked with her hands and fought with her heart. But Denzel's home was divided. At 14, his parents split. And right in the eye of that emotional storm, he started to drift. Bad influences closed in. Gangs, drugs, violence. He started running with the wrong crowd. And little by little, the sensitive boy inside him began to fade. He got colder, quicker to react, easier to explode. But his mother saw it happening and made one of the hardest decisions of her life. She sent her son away to a Christian military school, far from everything he knew. To Denzel, it didn't feel like protection. It felt like punishment. He felt angry, abandoned, resentful. But in that forced exile, something began to shift. He read a lot. He wrote even more. And somewhere in that silence, he found the artist inside. Have you ever felt forgotten? Like every step you take is done in silence. No audience, no applause. Denzel knew that silence. Before the fame, before the red carpets, before the trophies, there was just a boy, the son of a strict preacher and a warrior hairdresser, growing up in the rough streets of the Bronx, in a New York where dreams often died before they even began. But it was there, amid the roar of the trains, the heat rising off cracked sidewalks, that he learned to observe. He learned to listen. He learned that the world doesn't give you anything. You have to take it. And that's where his story begins. His father was a man of faith, a Pentecostal pastor, harsh, demanding, often emotionally absent. There was no space for softness, no room for vulnerability. Discipline was the language, and when he spoke, it was to correct, never to comfort. His mother, though, his mother, Lennis Washington, a strong black woman, hard-working, resilient. She stood for hours in a small salon, styling hair, hearing stories, holding back tears, sometimes even her own. It was from her that Denzel learned what it truly means to fight, not with fists, but with persistence, with dignity, with that quiet strength of someone who knows no one's coming to save you, and still gets up every single day. But what truly marked him was the moment those two forces in his life, so different, so powerful, finally broke apart. He was just 14 when his parents separated. And he remembers that day like it just happened. I was sitting on the stairs. My father put a pair of socks in his pocket, walked out the door, and never came back. That absence became a hole, a void that screamed, because it wasn't just the loss of a father, it was the loss of direction, of identity, of knowing who you are, when the person who was supposed to show you that just vanished. That's when the real battle began, not against the world, but inside himself. After his father left, the house got quieter. But inside Denzel, everything got louder. Internal screams, doubts, an emptiness that echoed every day. His father's absence wasn't just physical, it was a fracture in the soul. And like any young boy trying to make sense of the world, without a compass, without a mirror, Denzel started to fall off track. At school, behavior issues. He was restless, sarcastic, defiant. He wouldn't study. He'd pick fights. He'd joke around in the back of the class just to hide the storm inside. I tried to get attention any way I could, he said, because deep down, I was broken. The streets of Mount Vernon began calling him, and he answered. The wrong crowds, the dangerous influences. He started to flirt with the darkness, small-time trouble, friendships with drug dealers, nights that didn't have a way back. He later admitted, if I had stayed on that path, I'd probably be dead or locked up. But behind the rebellion, there was still just a boy, A boy filled with rage, a boy consumed by fear, a boy with a gaping hole where safety was supposed to be. Can you imagine that weight? The burden of abandonment, the pain of being unseen, of trying to become someone without having anyone to show you how? And it's exactly there, in that darkness, where the spark is born. Because it's in those moments that life asks, are you going to repeat the pain or turn it into power? Everything could have gone wrong. In fact, everything almost did. But the universe has a strange way of protecting those who still have a purpose to fulfill. Denzel was sent to a private school, Oakland Military Academy, a strict, almost reformatory-like institution. And it was there that something began to shift. It didn't happen overnight. But for the first time he had to face himself. Early mornings, strict rules, daily discipline. The chaos of the streets was replaced by rigid routines, and little by little, the anger turned into strength. The restlessness became energy. And that rebellious boy started to hear a voice inside him that whispered, "You were made for more, so much more." It was during this time that a friend's mother, a simple, church-going woman, looked at him with prophetic eyes and said, "Young man, one day you'll speak to millions. One day the whole world will know your name." Denzel didn't know what to do with those words. He laughed. He doubted. But he held on to them, because sometimes all we really need is for someone to see us. And in that moment, a seed was planted. The first spark of faith, the first crack of light in the darkness. He didn't know what he was going to be yet, but for the first time, he started to believe he could be something. When Denzel returned to the Bronx, he didn't come back a hero. He came back as just another face in the crowd. The streets hadn't changed. Same steam rising from manhole covers. Same smell of hot asphalt mixed with fried food from corner vendors. Same shouts from neighbors. Same sirens wailing in the distance. And his friends, most of them, already gone. Some in jail, others dead. The system chewed up dreams like they were crumbs. And Denzel was so close to being another name lost in the cracks. He started taking odd jobs, washing dishes, working the counter at a beauty salon. And for a while, he thought about giving up. "Back then, I didn't know who I was," he said. "I just knew what I didn't want to be." But then, something unexpected happened. One day, he tagged along with a friend to a local community theater performance. A simple play, held in a converted basement, no set design, no glamour, but when the lights dimmed and the actor stepped onto the stage, something shifted inside him. Denzel didn't just see a performance, he saw truth, he saw life, he saw a mirror. "I saw someone telling a story, and for the first time I wanted to tell mine." He started going back to the group, at first just watching. He took a small part, one line, then another. And when he finally stepped onto the stage for the first time, he felt something he couldn't explain. The heat of the lights on his face, the stillness of the audience, the sound of his own breathing. It was as if the entire world faded away, and only that moment remained, that script, that emotion. On that tiny stage, I was heard for the very first time. For the first time, I existed. After that first performance, Denzel had no more doubts. He knew he had to do this, not for fame, not for money, but because, finally, he felt like he had a place. Theater became a fixation, an obsession. He rehearsed all night long, jotted down lines in his school notebook, studied the greats, Marlon Brando, Sidney Poitier, James Earl Jones, but he also heard the voices. Denzel understood. Success isn't a destination. It's a road full of thorns, and he was ready to walk it step by step, with the courage of a man carrying his future in his own hands. Eventually, Denzel landed his first major role in a theater production, one that would change everything. On that stage, under the burning spotlights, he could feel sweat running down his temples, his heart pounding, his breath uneven. It was fear and desire tangled together, and in that moment, he heard a voice deep within. "You're here because you deserve to be." But success brought a different kind of pressure. All eyes were on him now. The world expected perfection, a role model, and Denzel could feel the crushing weight of that expectation. "I was afraid of letting people down, afraid of losing control, afraid that everything I'd fought so hard for could vanish in an instant." Between interviews, rehearsals, and sleepless nights, he battled deep internal doubts. Am I really ready for this? Is this dream too big for me? In that phase of his life, Denzel began to understand the cost of fame. He distanced himself from friends, tried to reshape himself to fit the expectations. And often, he felt an overwhelming loneliness, a hollowness that even the loudest applause couldn't fill. But deep down, something screamed, "Keep going, this is just the beginning." He knew he had to master not just the craft, but himself. And so, in that search, he began preparing for the next chapters of his life, where the real battle for success, purpose, and identity was still ahead. With a few standout roles on his resume, Denzel began making his way into Hollywood. But it wasn't like the theater. The warmth of stage lights was replaced by cameras and business decisions. Every character, every script was an opportunity, but also a trap. So many people trying to put you in a box. "I'm tired of being just the guy who plays that role." Denzel would think, feeling the weight of the stereotype. On set, the pressure was real, long hours, impatient directors, and that ever-present voice inside him, "You've got to outdo yourself every single day." He worked relentlessly, but the mental and emotional fatigue kept growing. At the end of the day, alone in some hotel room, the silence was deafening, and the doubts returned. Is this really worth it? Am I losing myself? In interviews, he confessed, "I think success tests your character. It reveals who you really are, and it demands that you be willing to reinvent yourself." But reinvention came at a cost. In his personal life, the pressure mounted. Family, relationships, friendships, everything demanded time and energy he barely had. And the young actor who once just wanted to belong was now fighting to stay true to himself, even while the world tried to shape him into something else. But Denzel knew he had to hold on to his focus, to his purpose, to the reason he started this journey in the first place. Because in the end, what he wanted wasn't just success, it was meaning. Then came Glory in 1989. A powerful, historic film. Denzel was no longer just another actor. He became a voice, a symbol. As Private Tripp, a brave black soldier facing racism in the midst of the American Civil War, he delivered a performance that was raw, visceral, unforgettable. Scenes that burned into memory, sweat, tears, war cries, and terror. The smell of the battlefield felt almost real to those watching, and Denzel could feel the weight of it. After the premiere, he heard words that would change his life. "You're not just talented, you're a warrior. You tell stories that the world needs to hear." But with recognition came towering expectations, the pressure to maintain that level, to never slip, to never disappoint. In interviews, he confessed, "Fame isn't just light, it's shadow too. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking a tightrope. One wrong step, and everything could come crashing down." Denzel was facing a battle most never see, the fear of losing yourself in the pursuit of success. But the key, he discovered, was balance. He would say, "You have to know who you are in the silence. And never let the noise of the world change that." That moment changed him. from promising actor to artist with purpose, and with that shift, the path only became more intense. After Glory, Denzel knew he had crossed an invisible line. That role didn't just open doors, it placed a new weight on his shoulders to represent truthfully, to carry stories that mattered, to give voice to the unheard. He remembered one night in 1990, when he received his first Golden Globe. The room was full, bright lights, camera flashes, an orchestra playing in the background, but inside, a deep, restless silence. In an interview, Denzel said, "At that moment I asked myself, do I really deserve this? Am I truly worthy?" Doubt can consume you if you let it. And that doubt came with the fame, with the pressure, with the spotlight that never turned off. He kept working relentlessly, but the mental exhaustion was overwhelming. Endless flights, scripts to memorize, industry expectations, and the weight of an audience always watching. It was as if every new scene was a test, every round of applause a silent demand. Denzel was facing the classic dilemma of success. How do you stay authentic when the world wants to mold you? He opened up about the temptations of the industry. "People told me to take the easy roles to become a star. But I wanted more than fame. I wanted meaning. I didn't want to be just another handsome face on screen. I wanted to tell stories that mattered." And the pressure to live up to that standard almost broke him. He admitted that at times he felt lost, unsure if the fight was still worth it. On one particularly brutal day, after a grueling shoot, he described the moment like this: "My body ached, my mind was screaming for rest, but I looked in the mirror and saw there was a greater mission there, and quitting was never an option." The sensory elements were vivid. The smell of makeup in the dressing room, the muffled noise of the studio, sweat running down his forehead, the texture of the costume clinging to his skin. Every detail carried weight. Every second was a reminder of purpose. But Denzel knew he needed to evolve. That's when he began to seek more than just acting. He wanted to lead, to inspire, to become a living example, on screen and off. He once said in a speech, "When you reach a certain level, the world no longer sees you as just you, but as a symbol, an inspiration, a leader. And that's a massive responsibility. I had to prepare for that, every single day." That preparation wasn't just physical. It was mental, emotional, and spiritual. And it was in that inner work that he built the mindset that would help him withstand the storms of fame. After Glory came the roles that would define a generation, but every choice was intentional. Denzel didn't accept just any script. He used to say, "If it doesn't have soul, I won't do it. If the story doesn't speak truth, I'm not showing up." And it was that relentless pursuit of truth that led him to Malcolm X, a bold film, political, controversial, and absolutely necessary. But portraying Malcolm wasn't just a role, it was a historical responsibility. He spent an entire year preparing. He studied the speeches, the cadence, the gestures. He visited the neighborhoods Malcolm lived in. He spoke with Malcolm's family. He lived the role, even off set. Spike Lee, the director, said, "Denzel didn't play Malcolm, he became Malcolm." On set, the energy was electric. Silence would fall before every scene. And Denzel, he would enter a trance. In one iconic moment, after delivering a fiery speech, the entire crew was left in tears. A sound technician whispered, "It felt like Malcolm himself was standing right in front of us." The role nearly consumed him. He later admitted he had recurring nightmares during filming, and that it took time to find himself again. When you dive that deep, you don't come out the same on the other side. But the performance was unforgettable. Oscar-nominated, critically acclaimed, and most importantly, cherished by those who mattered most, Black America. But even with the acclaim, Denzel faced the shadow of the Oscar snub. Once again, he was nominated. Once again, he lost. And the pain wasn't just his, it was collective. He later said, "It felt like the world was saying, 'You were great, but not good enough.' But I was used to that. My whole life had been like that." Still, he never played the victim. He turned frustration into fuel. You either break or you turn into fire. Then came the hurricane, Remember the Titans, Training Day, powerful films, layered characters, awards, recognition, applause, but also a quiet kind of loneliness. Behind the scenes, Denzel was fighting a battle no one really saw. He'd been married since 1983 to Pauletta, a strong, grounded woman, calm in the storm, holding the home together while the world cheered for her husband. In an interview with Oprah, he said, "She's my rock. Without her, I'd be lost." But even with that anchor, the pressure was immense. Sometimes, after filming a tough scene, I'd go back to the hotel room and just cry. It wasn't sadness, it was weight. The weight of being the one who represents. The weight of always needing to be right. To be the model, the hero, the invincible one. When you're a successful black man in America, you're not allowed to make mistakes. One slip and they'll tear you down. Those words carried pain, real pain, the kind that stays with you. Denzel lived between extremes. On one side, the glamour of Hollywood. On the other, the reality of being a black father of 4, trying to teach what's right, in a world that constantly tries to break them. And he asked himself, how do you raise strong kids in a country that's designed to weaken them? That was when he realized success wasn't enough. He needed something more. He needed purpose. The year was 2001. Denzel Washington receives the script for Training Day. The role, a corrupt cop, manipulative, unpredictable, a villain. It was the first time he would play someone so morally twisted. Many warned him, "You'll ruin your image. This will stain your legacy. You don't need this." But Denzel read the script, looked in the mirror, and whispered to himself, "That's exactly why I have to do it." He wanted to prove he was more than just the hero on screen. He wanted to show depth, complexity, humanity, even in the darkest of characters. And that's exactly what he delivered. Every scene was raw, unfiltered, explosive. He transformed Alonzo Harris into one of the most iconic and chilling characters in film history. Lines like, "King Kong ain't got shut on me," became part of pop culture. The audience roared. The critics bowed, and for the first time since Sidney Poitier, a black actor won the Academy Award for Best Actor in a leading role. That night, Denzel stepped on stage, eyes gleaming, and said, "I've always wanted to follow in the footsteps of the great Sidney Poitier, and tonight they let me in through the front door." Applause, tears, pride. But something hurt, deep inside, because it was ironic, almost cruel, that after all the roles that inspired hope, the Oscar finally came for playing a villain. Years later, he admitted, "Hollywood applauded me when I stepped away from my values." That contradiction never left him, and that's when a new Denzel was born, more spiritual, more selective, more intentional. From that point forward, he began to speak more openly about faith, about God, about purpose. In interviews, he would say, "I'm not here by accident. God put me here for a reason. And it's not to win awards, it's to touch souls." He began turning down roles that didn't align with that mission. He said no more often, but when he said yes, it was for something meaningful. He starred in The Book of Eli, playing a blind man guided solely by faith. Then came Fences, which he directed himself, a powerful story about the harsh reality of a black father in the 1950s. Denzel didn't want to just entertain anymore. He wanted to provoke, to awaken, to transform. And behind the scenes, his mission kept growing. He began sponsoring scholarships for young black actors. quietly, without cameras, without needing credit. Many of them reached the big screen only because of him, including Chadwick Boseman, who once revealed in a speech, "I only graduated because Denzel Washington paid for my tuition, and he didn't even know me." That moment was televised. Denzel smiled humbly and said, "That's it." He began giving speeches, mentoring youth, repeating a line that became his personal mantra: "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." Today, Denzel Washington is more than a name, more than an actor, more than an Oscar. He's a symbol that it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter if your father left. It doesn't matter if you carry trauma, or if the world keeps trying to push you down. You can rise, and more than that, you can use your scars as fuel. His entire life, people tried to box Denzel in, tried to tell him who he could or couldn't be, but he learned to look within and ask himself, "What's my mission?" And his mission was never just to be famous. It was to make a difference. Even today, Denzel wakes up early, studies scripts, prays, mentors, and sows seeds, because he understood something that maybe you need to hear too. Life's not about you. It's about who you touch with what you've lived through. And now, it's about you. Maybe you're going through doubt, pain, confusion. Maybe, like young Denzel, you feel lost, surrounded by the wrong people. Tired of trying, afraid to fail, but listen carefully. You are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are not the statistics. You are possibility. You are healing in motion. You are purpose becoming real. And if you're still breathing, then the story isn't over. Denzel Washington didn't succeed by luck. He succeeded because every time he fell, he asked, "What is God trying to teach me here?" And then he rose again, stronger, wiser, with more fire in his soul. So if this story moved you, if you saw yourself in any part of this journey, then this video isn't just about Denzel, it's about you, about what you can still become, about the turning point you haven't reached yet. So like this video, subscribe to the channel. But more than that, drop a comment below. What part of his story hit you the hardest? What turning point are you ready to write in your own life? Tag someone who needs this, someone who forgot their own worth, someone who needs to be reminded that pain teaches too. Because in the end, it's not about fame. It's not about awards. It's about turning your story into a message that sets others free. And remember, don't just aspire to make a living. Aspire to make a difference. Denzel Washington, are you ready for that? Then write your next chapter. We believe in you, and the world is watching.